Every year, the village sacrificed one person to the monster hidden inside the forest temple. No one who entered ever returned. Until one night, they sent a poor woodcutter named Thach Sanh. But the creature waiting inside the darkness was not the only monster he would face. Long before the monster came, before the screams echoed through the village, before blood stained the ancient temple stones, there was only a boy who lived alone at the edge of the forest. His name was Thach Sanh. No one knew much about where he came from. Some villagers said his parents died when he was very young. Others believed the forest itself had raised him. But no matter which story people chose to believe, everyone agreed on one thing. There was something strange about him. Not evil, not frightening, just different. While other men struggled to carry fallen trees, Thach Sanh could lift them alone. While hunters feared the deep forest at night, he walked through it without hesitation. And sometimes late after midnight, villagers claimed they saw him standing silently beneath the trees, motionless, as though he were listening to whispers no one else could hear. The forest never seemed afraid of him, and somehow he was never afraid of the forest. But despite the rumors, Thach Sanh was kind, quiet, honest, the kind of person who shared food even when he barely had enough for himself. The kind of man people trusted instantly without understanding why. Maybe that was why Thach approached him. The first time they met, it felt almost accidental. Thach Sanh was returning from the woods carrying freshly cut firewood across his shoulders. That was when he saw a man waiting beside the road, smiling, friendly, warm. At least, that was how he appeared. "My brother," the man said softly. "You shouldn't live alone out here." His name was Thach, a traveling merchant, or at least that was what he called himself. Unlike Thach Sanh, Thach spoke easily, too easily. He laughed often, praised people quickly, knew exactly what to say to make others trust him. And before long, he treated Thach Sanh like family. They ate together, worked together, drank together beside the fire at night while the forest howled quietly in the distance. For the first time in years, Thach Sanh no longer felt alone. But there was something he didn't see, because while Thach Sanh viewed Thach as a brother, Thach saw something else entirely: opportunity. The villagers feared the forest. They feared the darkness hidden beneath the trees. But Thach feared something far worse: poverty. And men like him would do anything to escape it, even if it meant sacrificing someone else. Then one night, everything changed. A drum echoed through the village. Slow, heavy. Everyone stopped what they were doing. Doors closed, candles dimmed, and silence spread across the streets like a disease. Because everyone knew what the drum meant. The monster had chosen again. And this year, the name called by the village elders was Thach. The moment the drum stopped, the entire village fell silent. No one cried. No one protested. Because this had happened before. Every single year, the monster demanded a life. And every single year, someone disappeared into the forest, never to return. Children were pulled inside their homes. Doors were locked. Candles were extinguished early. Even the wind outside seemed quieter that night, as if the village itself was afraid. Thach stood frozen in the middle of the street, his face pale, his breathing uneven. For the first time since meeting him, Thach Sanh saw fear in his eyes. Real fear. Not the kind a man shows to gain sympathy. The kind that strips away every mask. You know what happens to people sent there.
Lee Tong whispered,
His voice shaking. They never come back. Thach Sanh looked toward the distant forest.
dark.
Silent. Watching. He had heard the stories before. Everyone had. A creature hidden inside the ancient temple deep within the woods. Some claimed it was once human. Others believed it was something far older. But no one truly knew, because no one survived long enough to tell the story. That night, Lai Thong invited Thach Sanh to drink with him. At first, everything felt normal. Too normal. The fire cracked softly between them. Rice wine filled their cups.
Lee Tong Loget
Smiled. Spoke like nothing had changed. But beneath that calm voice, something was breaking. And then finally he spoke. My brother. His tone softer now. You are stronger than anyone I've ever known. Thach Sanh looked up quietly. You fear nothing. Another pause, long enough to feel strange. Then Lai Thong lowered his voice. If I die tomorrow, my old mother will be alone. The words hung heavily in the air, and for a moment, the forest outside seemed to grow darker. Thach Sanh said nothing, but Lai Thong continued, desperate now. You could survive in that temple. You could defeat the creature. I know you could. The fire flickered across his face, and suddenly his smile no longer looked warm. It looked hungry, manipulative, carefully planned. But Thach Sanh didn't notice, because unlike Lai Thong, he was honest. And honest people rarely expect betrayal from those they trust. Slowly, Thach Sanh nodded. I'll go. The moment the words left his mouth, something changed. Relief flooded Lai Thong's face so quickly it almost looked unnatural. Too fast, too eager. But it disappeared just as quickly. Hidden again behind gratitude. You truly are my brother, he whispered. Yet later that night, while Thach Sanh slept peacefully beside the dying fire, Lai Thong remained awake, watching him, silent, cold, not like a brother watching family, but like a man watching someone walk willingly toward death. Because deep down, Lai Thong never believed Thach Sanh would survive. No one ever had. And as the night grew darker, the forest waited, patiently, hungrily, for the man who would enter the temple before sunrise. Before sunrise, Thach Sanh entered the forest alone.
No farewell.
No crowd watching him leave, because the villagers already believed he was dead. The deeper he walked, the quieter the world became.
No birds. No insects.
Even the wind seemed afraid to move between the trees. Only the sound of his footsteps and the slow creaking of bamboo in the darkness. Somewhere ahead, the temple waited, ancient, forgotten, hungry. The stories claimed the monster had lived there for generations, feeding, waiting, growing stronger with every life the village surrendered. And now it was waiting for him. Thach Sanh tightened his grip around the axe resting on his shoulder. The same axe he had used his entire life to cut wood in the forest. But tonight it would taste blood. As the sun disappeared completely behind the mountains, he finally saw it. The temple, half swallowed by roots and shadow. Its stone walls cracked with age. Dark stains covered the entrance. Not dirt, not moss. Something older, something worse. For a moment, even Thach Sanh stopped walking, because standing before the temple felt wrong, like standing too close to the mouth of something alive. Then he heard it, a sound from inside, slow, heavy, breathing. The villagers were right. The creature was real, and it knew he had arrived. The temple doors stood slightly open, just enough to reveal darkness beyond them. Thach Sanh stepped forward carefully. The air inside was colder, thicker. The smell hit him first, blood-wrought death. Broken bones covered the stone floor. Human bones. Some old enough to crumble into dust. Others not old at all. A torch flickered weakly against the wall. And then everything went silent. Completely silent.
No breathing.
No movement. Nothing. Thach Sanh frowned. Slowly, he reached for the torch. That was when the darkness moved. A massive shape exploded from above the temple ceiling. Fast. Far too fast. Claws slammed into the stone beside him. The entire temple shook violently. Thach Sanh rolled backward just as another strike ripped through the floor where he had been standing seconds earlier. Then he finally saw it. The monster. Its body twisted and unnatural. Its eyes glowing deep red inside the darkness. Rows of jagged teeth stained black with dried blood. And its size, far larger than any human. The creature let out a roar so loud, the walls trembled. Outside, birds exploded from the forest trees. Back in the village, people heard the sound, and every single one of them believed the same thing. Thach Sanh was dead, but inside the temple, the battle had only just begun. The creature lunged again, faster this time, its claws slicing through the air toward his throat. At the very last second, Thach Sanh swung the axe. A violent crack echoed through the temple. The monster screamed. Dark blood splattered across the stone walls. But instead of retreating, it became furious, hungrier, more violent. Again and again the creature attacked. And again and again. Thach Sanh fought back. Steel against claws. Roars against thunder. Man against monster. Until finally, one final strike split through the darkness. And suddenly, everything became still. The silence that followed felt unnatural. The monster stood frozen in the center of the temple. Its glowing eyes locked onto Thach Sanh, wide with rage and something else. Fear. Dark blood poured across the stone floor beneath it. The creature staggered backward once, then again, until finally, its enormous body collapsed with a thunderous crash that shook the entire temple. And just like that, the nightmare that had haunted the village for generations was dead. Thach Sanh stood motionless, breathing heavily,
His clothes stained with blood.
his hands trembling slightly around the axe, not from fear, from exhaustion. For several long seconds, he simply stared at the creature lying before him, as if even he could not fully believe what had happened. Then, a strange sound echoed through the temple. Not a roar, not breathing, laughter.
Soft. Distant.
Human. Thach Sanh turned instantly, but there was no one there. Only darkness. Only shadows moving along broken stone walls. The torchlight flickered violently, and for the first time that night, Thach Sanh felt uneasy, because something about this place still felt wrong, as though killing the monster had awakened something else. Then suddenly, a loud crack echoed outside. Branches snapping. Voices. Human voices. Thach Sanh rushed toward the temple entrance. And there, standing beyond the trees, was Lai Thong. But he wasn't alone. Several villagers stood behind him holding torches. None of them moved closer. None of them stepped inside. They only stared,
Shocked.
terrified, because no one had ever seen a man walk out of the temple alive before. Thach Sanh,
Lee Tong whispered.
his face pale with disbelief. You survived. For a brief moment, he almost sounded disappointed, but then his expression changed.
Quickly.
Too quickly. His fear disappeared behind a smile. A clever smile. The kind that hides thoughts moving faster than words. He stepped forward slowly, looking past Thach Sanh toward the dead creature inside the temple. And in that instant, everything changed inside his eyes.
Greed. Pure greed.
Because the king had promised a great reward to whoever killed the monster. Gold.
Land. Power.
The kind of reward men killed each other for.
Lee Tong swallow hat.
Then he looked back at Thach Sanh. My brother, he said quietly, you must leave. Thach Sanh frowned. What? Lai Thong lowered his voice urgently. The king believes this creature belongs to the gods. If they discover you killed it, they may execute you. The villagers behind him nodded nervously. Some looked uncertain. Others looked frightened enough to believe anything. But Thach Sanh, honest as always, did not question him. He trusted him. That was his weakness.
Lee Tong stipet go lo.
Go now, he whispered. I'll handle everything. For a moment, Thach Sanh hesitated. Something felt strange.
Wrong.
But before he could speak, another sound tore through the forest. A scream, high above the trees. Everyone looked upward instantly, and then they saw it. A gigantic shadow moving across the moonlight.
Wings.
Massive wings. The villagers began screaming. Torches dropped to the ground, because descending from the darkness above them was something far larger, far more terrifying than the monster inside the temple. A giant eagle, and trapped within its claws was a human figure. The creature's wings blocked the moonlight. For one horrifying moment, the entire forest disappeared beneath its shadow. Villagers screamed and scattered in panic. Some fell to their knees. Others ran blindly into the darkness between the trees, because everyone understood the same terrifying truth. This was no ordinary animal. It was a monster, and trapped within its claws, struggling desperately, was the princess. Her cries echoed across the forest as the giant eagle rose higher into the night sky. Then suddenly, it vanished into the mountains beyond the trees.
Gone.
Just like that, silence returned again, heavy, breathless. The villagers stood frozen in terror. No one moved. No one spoke. Until finally, someone whispered the words everyone else was thinking. The princess is dead. By morning, the entire kingdom had fallen into chaos. The king ordered soldiers into the forest. Hunters searched the mountains, but none returned with answers. Only fear. Because deep beneath the kingdom, stories already existed about a hidden place beneath the earth. A cave no man returned from. And now, people believed the giant eagle lived there. Days passed. The king grew desperate. His only daughter had vanished. And with every passing night, hope slowly died. But one person still searched. Thach Sanh. Unlike the others, he had seen something important. As the eagle disappeared into the darkness, it had left behind a trail. Tiny drops of blood falling from the princess's wounded hand. Most people never noticed, but Thach Sanh did. And now, that trail led him deep into the mountains, far beyond the places ordinary men dared to walk. The deeper he traveled, the stranger the world became. The trees twisted unnaturally. The air grew colder, and the silence felt alive. Then finally he found it, a massive hole hidden beneath the roots of a mountain cliff. The cave. Darkness poured from it like smoke. Cold air drifted upward, carrying the smell of death from somewhere far below. Thach Sanh stepped closer carefully, and then he heard it, a faint sound echoing from deep underground.
Chains.
Breathing, and something else.
Crying.
The princess was still alive. For a brief moment, fear crossed even Thach Sanh's face. Not because he feared death, but because every instinct inside him warned the same thing. Once he entered that cave, nothing would ever be the same again. Behind him, the wind howled through the mountains like distant voices, almost as if the forest itself was begging him not to go any further. But Thach Sanh tightened his grip around the axe, and without another word, he stepped into the darkness below. The cave swallowed the light behind him. Step by step, Thach Sanh descended deeper beneath the mountain. The air grew colder,
Damper.
Every sound echoed endlessly through the darkness.
Drip. Drip. Drip.
Water falling somewhere far below. But beneath that sound, there was something else. Breathing.
Heavy. Slow. Alive.
Thach Sanh raised the torch higher as he continued forward. The walls around him were covered in deep claw marks. Bones littered the ground. Human bones. Some cracked open. Some still wrapped in scraps of torn cloth. This was not just a cave. It was a feeding ground. Then suddenly, the crying stopped. Silence. Complete silence. Thach Sanh froze. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back. But before he could move, a weak voice echoed through the darkness. "Help me." The princess. He rushed toward the sound. The tunnel opened into a massive underground chamber illuminated by strange blue light glowing from the stone walls. And there, chained beside a pile of broken bones, was the princess. Her face pale, her hands trembling. The moment she saw Thach Sanh, disbelief filled her eyes. "You came," she whispered.
No one else had.
No soldiers.
No hunters. No heroes.
Only him. Thach Sanh moved quickly, cutting through the chains with his axe. But the instant the final chain broke, a deafening scream exploded through the cavern. The giant eagle had returned. The entire cave shook violently. Dust rained from above. And then, from the darkness high overhead, two massive glowing eyes opened. Watching them, the creature dropped from the shadows like a nightmare. Its claws slammed into the stone floor hard enough to crack it apart. The princess screamed. Thach Sanh shoved her backward just as the eagle attacked. Its wings blasted through the chamber like a storm. Its beak sliced toward his head. Thach Sanh barely dodged in time. The creature moved with terrifying speed despite its massive size. Again and again, it attacked without stopping.
Claws. Wings.
Screams echoing through the darkness. The cave became chaos. Then suddenly, the eagle grabbed Thach Sanh and hurled him across the cavern. He crashed hard against the stone wall, his axe sliding across the ground out of reach. The creature shrieked triumphantly, and slowly it began walking toward him, one step at a time, confident, hungry, certain it had already won. Behind the monster, the princess cried helplessly, and for the first time since entering the cave, death felt close, very close. The eagle raised its claws, ready to tear him apart. Then something changed. The torchlight flickered across the axe lying several feet away, and in that moment, Thach Sanh remembered something his father once told him long ago. The forest does not protect the strongest man. It protects the one who refuses to fall. Slowly, painfully, Thach Sanh pushed himself back to his feet, blood running down his face. Breathing heavy, but still standing, the eagle hesitated, just for a second, and that second was all he needed. The giant eagle screamed and launched itself toward Thach Sanh one final time. Its claws tore through the air. Its wings shook the entire cavern. But this time, Thach Sanh did not move away. He ran forward, straight toward the monster. The princess screamed his name as the creature descended from above like a living nightmare. Then, at the very last second, Thach Sanh grabbed his axe
And swung.
A violent crack exploded through the cavern. The eagle let out a horrifying shriek as the blade tore deep into its neck. Dark blood rained across the stone floor. The creature staggered wildly, its wings smashing against the cavern walls. Again, Thach Sanh struck.
And again.
Until finally, the monster collapsed beside the underground lake with a thunderous crash that echoed through the darkness. Silence followed, heavy, endless. The nightmare was over, but not the betrayal. High above the cavern, ropes suddenly dropped down from the opening. Soldiers. The king's men had finally arrived. Relief filled the princess's eyes. But before Thach Sanh could climb, another face appeared above the hole. Li Tong. For one brief moment, their eyes met in silence, and Thach Sanh understood everything. The lies, the greed, the betrayal. Li Thong forced a smile, but fear already lived behind it. Then suddenly, the rope was cut. The princess screamed. Thach Sanh watched as the broken rope disappeared into the darkness beside him. And above, the cave entrance slowly vanished. Li Thong had left him there to die. Again, for a long time, Thach Sanh stood silently in the darkness. Not angry, not afraid, just disappointed. Because the real monster had never been the creatures hiding in the forest. It was the man he once called brother. Days later, the kingdom celebrated. Li Thong was praised as a hero. The king believed he had saved the princess. Gold filled the palace halls. Music echoed through the streets. But deep inside, Li Thong could not sleep. Because every night he saw the same thing. A man standing silently in the darkness beneath the earth. watching him, waiting. Then one stormy night, the palace doors opened, and Thach Sanh walked inside, alive. The entire kingdom fell silent. The truth finally surfaced like something buried too long beneath the shadows. The princess told everyone what truly happened, and for the first time, Lai Thong had nowhere left to hide. Fear consumed him completely, because men like Lai Thong always believe betrayal makes them stronger, until the moment they realize they were only digging their own grave. In the end, Thach Sanh became the hero the kingdom needed, not because he was the strongest, but because even after betrayal, he never became cruel. And maybe that is why this story survived for generations, because monsters are easy to recognize. They hide in caves, they hunt in darkness, but human greed, human betrayal, often wears a smile. So if this story teaches us anything, it is this: the most dangerous monsters are not always the ones with claws and teeth. Sometimes they look exactly like friends, and sometimes the kindest people carry the deepest scars. If you enjoyed this dark folktale, there are many more stories still waiting in the shadows. Stories of cursed forests, forgotten spirits, and monsters far older than memory itself. So stay with me, and I'll see you in the next story.